Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am Safir Jenkins, and I will be your host for today's lecture, which, by the way, as is always the case, is brought to you by the Frontiers International Plainfield Area Club. We are bringing you yet again another impactful segment of our Westry Horne Cultural and Heritage Lecture Series. I am your host and club president, Safir Jenkins, and I want to welcome you to today's lecture broadcast. Every year, through our scholarship, educational, and mentorship programs and other outlets, Frontiers International Plainfield Area Club helps provide opportunities to young people who wish to further their educational attainment beyond high school. We also host free seminars and workshops to help educate and empower community members in key areas, including the unspoken truths of Black history, financial literacy, and health and wellness. To enhance the lives of the most vulnerable among us, we also work alongside community members to fight for social and economic justice and equal human rights. If you would like to partner with us to help provide advancement through service, you can donate to our scholarship fund by Zelle using phone number area code 732-470-4207, or you may mail a check or money order to Frontiers International Plainfield, P.O. Box 428, Plainfield, New Jersey 07061. We are a 501c3 organization, and all qualified donations are tax deductible. Well, folks, let's prepare to jump into today's lecture. It gives me great privilege and honor to introduce to some and present to others the award-winning business school professor, international speaker, and entrepreneur, Jeffrey A. Robinson, PhD. Since 2008, he has been a leading faculty member at Rutgers Business School, where he is an associate professor of management and entrepreneurship and the academic director of the Center for Urban Entrepreneurship and Economic Development and research fellow of the Rutgers Advanced Institute for the Study of Entrepreneurship and Development. Dr. Robinson is also appointed since 2021 as the Prudential Chair in Business, and since 2013 has been the academic director, as previously mentioned, of the Center for Urban Entrepreneurship and Economic Development. He is the author of many articles and books on the topics of organization theory, entrepreneurship, and workforce diversity and inclusion. He is the co-author, alongside Dr. Randall Pinkett, of Black Faces in White Places, 10 game-changing strategies to achieve success and find greatness, and the recently released book, Black Faces in High Places, 10 Strategic Actions for Black Professionals to Reach the Top and Stay There. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming to the broadcast the esteemed and the renowned Jeffrey A. Robinson, PhD. Dr. Robinson, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for being here, sir. I, like many others, am looking forward to the insights that you'll be sharing today as it relates to the ABCs of entrepreneurship. I'm going to take a back seat, and the floor, sir, is yours. And I certainly welcome you and am looking forward to hearing from you further.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate the invitation. And also from my friend, John Brinkley, who asked me to speak today. I'm sitting over here at Rutgers Business School today. And I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about one of my favorite subjects, entrepreneurship. I've been teaching entrepreneurship for a long time. And to be honest, it's like second nature to me. I love speaking about entrepreneurship. So let me talk to you about the ABCs of entrepreneurship. I'm going to share a few slides, share a few things so that I can make some of my points clearer to everybody, and then we'll have some time to talk or to ask questions and get some of those questions answered. All right, let's see. If I do this right, everybody should be able to see my slides. All right, ABCs of Entrepreneurship. I've been teaching entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship topics for almost 25 years. And whether it is about entrepreneurs in our communities or entrepreneurs who are looking at technology entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship, there's lots of similarities, lots of things we could talk about. I'm going to give you a quick overview and particularly highlight why I think entrepreneurship is important for the Black community and other communities of color. My background comes from engineering and sciences, and then into the business world. So I have a unique perspective and certainly able to talk to those topics as well. My own personal journey travels through the Queen city of Plainfield. In fact, the first business that I launched with my business partners and college roommates, we ended up in Plainfield, New Jersey. Some of you know the Carriage House. We rented the Carriage House over there off of Park Ave so that we could have an office space to build our business. I'll tell you a little bit of that story a little bit later, but just know that I've been on this journey around entrepreneurship for a long time. But we use this word entrepreneurship, and it's not always clear what we mean. A lot of times people think entrepreneurship just means creating a new business. We think about all the people over in Silicon Valley or all the apps that people are creating. But entrepreneurship is a little bit broader than that. It's the pursuit of opportunities without regard to resources in hand. So when you think about that as a definition, that really tells you why entrepreneurship is important, because there's a little bit of risk involved. There's a little bit of trying to pull resources together, pursuing opportunities. And the reality is you can do that inside of a company or inside your own company. And so there are entrepreneurial people inside of big companies. That's a whole another conversation. We won't go into that today, but you don't have to have your own company to be entrepreneurial. So keep that in mind. But when we talk about entrepreneurship today, I'm going to focus on the people who are developing their own new businesses. I'm going to focus on the people who are looking at the opportunities that are out there and trying to figure out what to do. So here's another way to think about entrepreneurship. I think about all the people who are creating their own businesses. Sometimes they're formally creating those businesses, registering them with the state. But, especially in the Black community, we got a lot of folks who are doing their own thing. Whether you're making cakes or you're a handyman, you may not have a formally registered business, but that's part of entrepreneurial activity. Some of us are self-employed. We work for ourselves. Others have businesses where we employ other people. There's a whole bunch of gig workers out there who are doing entrepreneurial things, whether you're doing the Uber or you're doing DoorDash. Maybe you've got your way of doing it that makes it different than what other people are doing. And then, of course, if I think about categories or reasons why people create entrepreneurial ventures, some are really interested in traditional entrepreneurship. I'm going out there to make some money. That's my thing. Some are trying to create entrepreneurial ventures that have a social purpose. Call those the social entrepreneurs. Some are really intent on technology. They don't care about too much else except trying to figure out how to commercialize some technology that they have or that others have given them a license to. So again, lots of different facets of entrepreneurship. There's lots of things that will help us to kind of think about the ABCs, or as you'll see in a few minutes, the VOI, the C, and the E of entrepreneurship. But this gives us at least an entry point to think about all the different types of activities that come underneath entrepreneurship. I am particularly interested in those people who create businesses that employ people. Because there are, as you'll see in a moment, I'll give you some statistics. There are lots of people who are one-person companies, and that one person is themselves. And that's great, because those are opportunities for you to make extra money in addition to your income at a job, or it could be a way for you to transition out of a company into your own business, be a consultant. Those are great opportunities. But there is another level of entrepreneurship, which is when you employ people. And again, I'm setting you up for some conversations we're going to have about why entrepreneurship is important. Because entrepreneurship is important because it can employ people. And there are new businesses out there, whether they are what we would traditionally think of as a micro business where you got 2 or 3 people working for you, or whether it's a small business. I think about those as being businesses that have 13 or less employees. Or if you're an emerging and growing company where you got 14 or 50, 14 to 50 type of numbers of employees, or those ones that are getting up there. They've got multiple, hundreds of people working for it. Those high growth ventures. There's a wide range. I know we call it all entrepreneurship, but reality is there's some nuance there. And so when we think about this at Rutgers and some of the things I've done over the years, we've tried to figure out programs that would be appropriate for these different types of entrepreneurship that's going on in our communities, in our cities, in our state. And you have to approach them slightly differently. So that's a whole nother story. If you want to ask questions about it, you certainly can. But let's get to some of the most recent statistics from our Small Business Administration here at in the U.S. We've got some very important things to note. I know we call it small business and entrepreneurship sometimes, but it's not small. We're talking about the reality is that most businesses in America are quote unquote small businesses. And that means they're less than 500 employees. The biggest companies in the country, they've got multiple thousands of people. So whether they're on the Fortune 500 and the Fortune 500 employs, 28 million people. But those are the largest companies in America. And most companies, the 33 million businesses are small businesses. And of that 33 million, 27 million of those companies don't have employees. So they're the one-person companies. And 18.3% are the ones, or 6 million companies are the ones that have paid employees. Small businesses employ 61 million Americans. That's 46.4% of employees that aren't on farms. And then, there's a lot of jobs that are being created. Between 1995 and 2021, 17.3 million new jobs were created by small businesses. That's about 62.7% of all the jobs created since 1995. So that tells you something, that when we talk about small business is really important for the American economy. And if you go and sort of cascade that down, small business is very important for our communities. All right, let me get down to some brass tacks. One of the reasons that I got into thinking about and doing things around entrepreneurship has to do with thinking about communities of color. So Black, Indigenous, people of color communities, look at these numbers here. This is based on 2019. Only about 20% of the companies that are small businesses that have employees, about 20% of them are owned by people of color. And we make a distinction here. The numbers go a little bit higher when we start talking about people who are self-employed. But the changes that we need in our communities are creating businesses that can hire other folks, especially other folks that look like us. That is a key point for our own economic development and for the development of our communities. So that when you can create businesses that grow to the point where they can employ other people, employ locally, employ people from around the neighborhood, now you are addressing the employment issue. You are addressing the issues that we often talk about as things that need to be changed or fixed. When we create our own wealth generating engines, now we're also looking into the future. We're able to do the fundraising that we need to create the schools, to create the community activities, or to address the challenges that we have. Business owners can be part of that economic development story. And frankly, when you look at the statistics on the screen there, and I'll just focus on Black-owned businesses here for a moment. Of those employer firms that are the 6 million companies in America that are hiring and employing others, only 2.4% were Black-owned. Now, we're 13% of the population, probably 14% of the population of the United States. But of this percentage of this type of company, we're only 2.4%. That's got to change. If you take a look at some of those other statistics that are there, minority business ownership lags minority share of the population. That, a lot of times that's what I'm trying to achieve, is trying to increase the number of employer businesses that are in our communities, because I know that impacts the number of people who are getting employed. And I'm also trying to grow those companies to a point where they are creating wealth for the people who own them. And if they are people of color, then that wealth can also go into the community. That is a lot of what my work has been at Rutgers and elsewhere to try to do for our communities. Because as I got there on the bottom of that slide, vibrant communities welcome entrepreneurs and small business owners. They do that and support the ecosystem, that we call it, the ecosystem of the businesses in the area. And when we do that, that leads to a certain vibrancy. In fact, one study that we cite in our book, Black Faces in High Places, talks about how the increases in specifically Black entrepreneurship in communities was a sign of not only vibrancy, but it also seemed to be correlated with lowering youth violence in communities. And it kind of makes sense to me. The more we've got Black and brown entrepreneurs in our communities, the more job opportunities there, mentoring is going on. The general outlook is different than when we've had our communities where the businesses in the community don't reflect the people who live there, and that becomes a particular set of challenges. All right, I said a lot. I'll just note that picture there is a picture of the day that my wife opened her business back in 2008. I'll tell you a bit more about that business as we go. It's called Eden Organics. But I want to give you my ABCs of entrepreneurship today. In order to do that, it's actually not the ABCs, but it's the VOIC and E, which spells voice. And I'm going to go through each letter and give you a sense of what I mean by raising your voice if you're going to create an entrepreneurial venture. Because the things that I've learned over the last 25 years, and then even before that from my grandmother who had a business, an upholstery business up in upstate New York, Newburgh, New York, is that entrepreneurs do things, they share things. And the first thing that I believe these all-star entrepreneurs is that they share some 5 common things that I want to share with you today that I think will be helpful, whether you are thinking about entrepreneurship, whether you are already engaged in entrepreneurship, or even somebody who is thinking about entrepreneurship as a potential career path for themselves. So those 5 things, or see what you see on the screen. We've got vision, opportunity, innovation, capital, and entrepreneurial networks. We'll take a couple minutes on each one. I'm going to say a little bit about how what we've learned from studying some of the businesses that have grown, and then I'll probably stop talking and either I'll tell you some more stories or we can entertain some questions. So, first thing that I should note for all the folks who are interested in entrepreneurship is that you really need to think about what your vision is. Your vision is for your business. Every business that I've started, I've thought about the idea of vision. Where did I want this business to go? How do I want to think about this business? Every all-star entrepreneur that I've met has been very thoughtful about whether they were trying to create a venture that was going to be technology business or whether it was going to be something that was related to entrepreneurship in social entrepreneurship, or whether they were somebody that was thinking about creating a business that was going to be community-based. They had a vision for what they were trying to do. The second thing that every one of these all-star entrepreneurs impressed me with is that they were entertaining this idea of opportunity. And when I say opportunity, what I mean is that they were people who were very clear about what their opportunity was that they were trying to address through their business. Opportunities are all around us, but it takes people who are skilled and who are bold to take advantage of those opportunities. Everybody who has ever traveled to go to a baseball game or a basketball game, you've seen a ton of people on the outside who are trying to do one of two things. Either you see a bunch of folks who they want to sell you a ticket, or you see the guys who have something to sell. They're probably selling some water, or they're selling a T-shirt, or they're selling some team hat or something like that, and they're there. And you say to yourself, well, that's an opportunity, but I didn't do anything about it. And that's precisely right. I know in that simple example, you're like, well, maybe that's not the biggest business. But it explains something about how some people see the opportunity and do something about it. Some people see the opportunity and do nothing about it. And no matter what the scale of the opportunity is, that mindset is something that I've been very clear that I've seen in entrepreneurs and have experienced myself. You got to be able to see those opportunities and be able to seize them, no matter whether it's in a high-tech area or whether it's in a community business. Third thing that I've noticed is the letter I. It's the word innovation. And it's about how people think about their businesses, their business model, how innovative they are. Often the difference between businesses that die out and those businesses that survive are how innovative they are in meeting the needs of their customers or clients. And so cultivating and managing that innovation and innovative practices is a key feature of what the best entrepreneurs are able to do. They're able over time to move their business into some innovative areas. Let me move on to the letter C, which is about capital. And when people talk about capital, often they talk about capital and think only about financial capital. But the people who create businesses that succeed, whether they know the way that I talk about it right now, or whether they just do it, they're able to take advantage of this idea that capital is anything that can be acquired, exchanged, or converted. They think about financial capital as being only one form of capital. Because frankly, most people, even when they start grandiose businesses, don't have all the money in hand right away. So what allows them to gather those financial resources? Well, it's these other forms of capital. It's the human capital, who you are, your skills, your education, your abilities and training and experience. It's social capital. It's people that you have in your network. It's the cultural capital. It's about what you know that other people don't know. And it's the intellectual capital. It's the teams that you put together that create that intellectual property that can be harnessed and used inside of a business. And when you pull those things together, they play off of one another. And the best businesses, and if you listen to the stories of top-notch entrepreneurs, you hear it. You hear how they use their own experiences, how they leveraged their connections, how they took the knowledge of how they grew up and where they grew up and languages they know and things along those lines, and pull things together in order to create businesses that thrive. Last but not least is entrepreneurial networks. Every top-notch entrepreneur, no matter what kind of entrepreneurship they pursue, when they're successful, they are often talking about how they connected with other people and organizations, how they connected entrepreneurs to the capital, to the innovation, the opportunities I was talking about before. It's all about their personal networks, their professional networks. It's their entrepreneurial networks that help them to make a difference. So all of those things, that V, that O, that I, that C, and that E, that's vision, opportunities, innovation, capital, and entrepreneurial networks are important. Why are they important? Because when you pull that together, that's what leads to the viability of the business. That's what helps it to survive. And when you pull those teams together to create the business plans or to create that team, when you pull those things together, those are the elements of the new venture. It's those people, it's those skills, it's those opportunities that when you put them together like a puzzle, that really make a difference. So let me tell you a couple of stories about my own business experiences, because when what I've done, stretching back now 30 years back to when I was a undergraduate student, is a story that tells the story about how you can put vision, opportunities, innovation, capital, and entrepreneurial networks together to make companies work. Well, first business. The first business that we started was called Mind, Body, and Soul Enterprises. Mind, Body, and Soul Enterprises, this is going to date me because it goes way back, but I think some people in the audience will know that we sold records, CDs, and tapes on campus. And I was a student at Rutgers University down in New Brunswick. And the only place you could get your music if you wanted that was close to campus was on George Street downtown. There was a record store, but the record store never had what I wanted. You go in there looking for the thing that you wanted, and they didn't have it. And so what we decided to do was to create a next day business. You thought Amazon.com was the one who created the next day service. Well, the reality is we created our own next day service company back in the mid 1990s. And we had a catalog. The catalog was a catalog of all the music that was released that week. And if you got to us before 6 o'clock in the evening, we could have it at the dining hall for you to pick up the following day. And whether you wanted records or CDs or tapes, we had you covered. And that was interesting because that wasn't the true purpose of the business. Yes, we sold records, CDs, and tapes, but that was only in order for us to be able to do some other activities that we wanted to do in the community. What were the other activities? Well, we did a whole bunch of seminars, workshops, and training workshops for high school students who were going to college. And it got expensive after a while. And so in order to pay for that, what did we do? We were sold the records, CDs, and tapes. What we didn't know is at the time, that was our form of social entrepreneurship, because our purpose was really to create this educational platform for high school students. Let me fast forward a bit in the story. The bit in the story is that we got so good at doing those workshops and training seminars that people started to pay us for that. And it paid us better than trying to make $1 or $2 on each transaction for selling CDs, records, and tapes. So from that, the second company was born. It was called MBS, Educational Services and Training. And that company focused on doing those kind of training workshops for colleges and universities, high schools, and eventually for corporations who had internship programs and mentorship programs. That was the company that was launched in the Carriage House, right there in Plainfield, New Jersey, at the Antique Castle. So we had a part of our company was based right there in Plainfield, and it grew for over several years. It grew to the point where we could stop doing it part-time and actually hire a couple of our business partners to do the work on a full-time basis. And that's what the business became in the late 1990s. I'm going to tell you about the third business that's on the screen, which is called BCT Partners, which is the successor to MBS, Educational Services and Training. BCT Partners leveraged some of the educational development that we had over that 10-year period from when we left Rutgers, and by the time we were able to get advanced degrees and to learn some things in the areas of business, community, technology. And BCT Partners became a consulting company, which still survives today. I'll tell you more about BCT Partners in a moment, but I want to just share that the last business that is on the page is one called Eden Organics. And Eden Organics is a company that my wife began back in 2008. We ran it for 7 years. It was an organic and natural day spa right in Highland Park, New Jersey. My wife had an idea of creating a day spa. She loved the day spa experience, but wanted to create a day spa experience that was all natural and using organic products. That was a trend at the time. For various reasons, we closed the business back in 2015, but she had she was probably ahead of her time in terms of having a business that was looking specifically at how to prevent some of the chemicals and some of the cancer-causing agents that were in beauty products, especially beauty products for women. Trying to eliminate those things so that people could have a more pure and organic experience. So that business we created back in the mid 2000s, and again, sometimes businesses do well, and sometimes you have to realize that it's not making money and you close them, and that's what happened in the case of Eden Organics. And yet there were a lot of things that we learned from that experience, and it turns out that for those of you who are hesitant about trying entrepreneurship, many people who do entrepreneurship are also able to make entrees back into the corporate world, which is exactly what my wife was able to do. And now she may flip back to do some more entrepreneurial things in her next her next act. And so that is something interesting, that these skills that we use in entrepreneurship are things that can be leveraged within corporations as well. All right, let me say just a bit more about BCT Partners. So BCT Partners is a business that is a successor of some of the things that I mentioned before. And BCT Partners has grown over the years. But its mission is to provide insights about diverse people that lead to equity. It started off with just a few of us, some four core partners. That would be Dr. Randall Pinkett. That would be Dallas Grundy, Lawrence Hibbert, and myself. If I can have a picture of them. Let me get to that picture. Here's a set of pictures that show you sort of the progression from back in the college dorms to wearing suits and looking pretty good in offices right here in New Jersey. Our goal in creating the company was always to be able to impact communities that we were interested in impacting. And we've been able to do that over the years through consulting agreements, through government contracting. And we've grown from a company that had just a few people in it to a company now has more than 150 employees, a company that started with $400,000 in revenues to now a company that is $26 million in revenues. We started as a company where we were dreaming about one day being on the Black Enterprise 100, the nation's largest Black businesses, to now being on the list. As of the last 3 years, we've been on the BE 100 list and has been noted by Forbes as being one of America's best consulting firms. So there's a story there. And we learned a lot from those early days on the left-hand side of the screen where you see us in the dorm as college students to now, we have a business that has exceeded a lot of people's expectations. That Lawrence Hibbert and Dr. Pinkett, they run the day-to-day, that both Dallas and I have been business partners over the years. And now they are buying other companies. And that to me is really an amazing story. But there's something that Lin-Manuel Miranda says, and maybe this is a good closer, because we learned a whole lot in the process of creating these companies over the years. In addition to that, I've dedicated part of my life to researching how businesses grow and develop over the years. But we learned that the hustle that gets you there doesn't always serve you at the summit. Some of the things we did early on, we would not do now. Some of the things that we've learned over the years help us to realize that in the later years, as you're trying to grow a company, you've got to make some decisions about how you're going to grow your company. What is it that you're going to be doing 5 years, 10 years from now? Thinking strategically about where your clients are going to come from and the like. So to me, that's a unique story, because frankly, there aren't as many large-scale Black-owned businesses that are out there. And the ones that I've looked at and studied, Dr. Pinkett and I have written about in our books, have made some very important decisions in what they've done and have figured out some things. We've kind of characterized them as the 5 M's of business on enterprise growth. And I think I'll close on this, is that you got to think about marketing and money and management. You got to think about mergers and acquisitions and mentoring. And as you grow, you can't be trapped by a small business mindset. That was what got you through the early stages of your company. That those of you who are in the growth stages, you got to be thinking about some of the things that are on the screen, about how you're going to grow in your companies and market it, how you're going to formalize some of the things that are in the business, who's going to be mentoring you, and how you're going to align yourself with the money that is available through investment and other sources. So I think all of those are things that people may be interested in, topics that people may want to talk some more about. I think my own experience and research that I've done over the years has given me a perspective that in my mind is a perspective that has value for people who are thinking about starting businesses, the people who are already in business, and the people who want to grow businesses. I've created some of those programs, and now at this point, I'm one of those folks who really wants to be able to share what he's doing and what he's learned with as many people as possible. So I want to thank the Plainfield Frontiers Club for having me, and certainly would be willing to take any questions or comments from the audience.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Robinson. Certainly some great information you've shared thus far. I definitely want to get into some of the questions that we are getting online. For those of you who have not yet done so, I invite you now to please throw any questions you might have into the chat, and we are going to select questions from there to answer them live during our broadcast. So please feel free to do so now. It doesn't matter if you're on YouTube or Facebook, or if you're like me, you're in both on different screens or in different tabs of your browser. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we will get to them to review and answer them accordingly. I want to begin, Dr. Robinson, by inquiring a bit about something you said. It struck me, and I was so glad to hear it. Some know, but not many may realize that I also am the head of human resources at an emerging physical therapy conglomerate. And one of the challenges that I see is the struggle with trying to maintain an environment that fosters and promotes a mindset of entrepreneurship. Because to your point, you don't necessarily have to be a business owner to be entrepreneurial in your efforts and in the way that you work. And so I want to ask of you, what are some of the ways that organizations can infuse their culture with a mindset of entrepreneurship? How can you sustain and support that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because as companies get bigger, they sometimes lose that entrepreneurial edge. I mean, that's a reality. So here's a couple of things that I encourage people to think about, especially if they are, in a larger organization. You got to ask yourself, who is bringing in sort of the fresh ideas? What are you doing to encourage people to think about new ways of doing things or new markets to approach? Our tendency is to get into a rut, or get into a groove where you're doing the same thing every day. We do this, we do that, we do it again, we do it again. And then next thing you know, 3 years have gone by. But when you have what companies often do is, when they have people who have interesting ideas, or are have these perspectives that seem a little bit off from everybody else, we try to shun them and push them aside, and not let them explore those ideas, or we don't hear them out, because it takes too much time and effort to think about those kind of things. Yeah. I'm the first person to say those are the people you need to think about, listening to a little bit more, giving them an opportunity to talk those things out. You don't know what gems are in there. Yeah, I know. I'm sure there's some times where that could get too much, but companies who have been able to grow exponentially, but also maintain an entrepreneurial mindset, have figured out ways to give some of their employees a percentage of time to work on new projects. Have created task force or small groups working groups that can do things differently than the rest of the organization. Some companies have figured out ways to reward people for having great ideas that save the company money or take them into a new direction. So I think all of those are ways in which you can restore that innovative or entrepreneurial edge, even in companies that have been doing it the same way for such a long time.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I really appreciate the insights there, because to your point, organizations and the people that run them and are really the engine behind its success often get into this groove, as you've said, where they're focused on the everyday tasks that have to be done, and then they lose sight of the opportunity to innovate. And so making sure that those fresh ideas are heard and giving platforms to those individuals certainly sounds like a rewarding and winning solution to achieve an entrepreneurial mindset being included in your culture. Now, I do want to pivot just a bit, because you did say something else that struck me. And again, it was very impactful. And I appreciate how you stated it. The way you framed it was that it's important not only to see opportunity, but to seize opportunity. And for many of us, seizing opportunity is not as easy as it might be for others. For a number of different reasons, there could be some as it relates to the inaccessibility to funding and or resources versus the systematic exclusion from those solutions or offerings. And so there's a question coming from Michael Pine, and that question says, what is the best approach for individuals to raise funds with a group towards starting a business? Should it be equitable? Should it be share-based? Percentage of ownership according to what is invested in the startup? And when money is at a premium and certainly is not as readily available, what are some of the strategic strategies that you would suggest in that area?
Yeah, it's a question that comes up a lot. So, I've actually done it a few ways myself, so I could tell you this from experience. When the startup team and the investors are the same group, all right, that's one scenario. You do need to have a very frank conversation about how you're going to make investments of time and money into the beginning of the company. There's an argument for that the people who are working the most in the company, maybe people who are going to be working full time in the company, are taking more risk, and so they should get more money, or should say get more equity, perhaps in the company, and there's a good argument for that. But there's also an argument for the actual dollars and cents making a difference in who's going to have more equity. You can do it either way. You should, but at some point it needs to be a conversation that has some definition to it. And there's a lot of resources out there that'll help you to think about it. Now that's the situation where, once again, the people who are starting the company are also the people investing in the company. There's another scenario, which is where you have a team or individuals who are creating the company, and you will have outside investors who will never work in the business. They're not part of the management team for the company, but they are investing. And that in that situation, you definitely need to be thinking about how their contributions and investments are going to be equated to shares in the company. But that requires a valuation, and that valuation process that needs to be taken seriously, because then we know how much money is worth how much of a percentage of the company. So that's a little more complicated than just saying, I gave you $1,000. Now I own 50% of your company. Doesn't work that way. Yeah. So you may have to get some more professional advice. It would be useful to have an accountant, somebody on the accounting side of things or finance side of things who could give you some advice, because each situation is a little bit different.
Yeah, I think it's important, even along those same lines, for the individuals who are engaged and partnered in the process of starting this business to ensure that they have individuals on task to own every different area of work, every scope of work, if you will, with certain redundancies, but you want to make sure that you're not trying to take on a task of managing everything and every facet of the business, because while you may be an expert at one, you certainly would be a novice or even an amateur at another area of business. And so it's important that you're partnering with the right people that you trust, and that you're undertaking and owning the steps necessary to take care of your people so they can take care of your business. And so I think that's a very important and key point as well. But you just said something that leads right into this next question. And so I want to jump right into that. You talked about how individuals making specified dollar amount investments, expecting to have a certain share of the company. And while that may end up being the case, obviously there's conversations that must take place before that happens. But John Brinkley, our friend, asks the question, what is your opinion of the TV show Shark Tank? And obviously the the practices that they demonstrate for us.
Oh yeah. I have lots to say about Shark Tank. I use Shark Tank as an example in in my classes. There's some great points around Shark Tank, and then there's some stuff that's a little artificial. I think the idea of pitching to investors, I think that's a great thing. I mean, I think that crystallizes your what you are thinking about with your business, because you got to put it concisely into a few minutes of a pitch and present it. That happens not only on Shark Tank, that happens in other situations where angel investors and other investors are looking to invest. So that, I think, is realistic. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes on Shark Tank that people sometimes don't realize. A lot of vetting to get you to that point. People talk about valuations of companies. The reason there's a moment in the show where every shark is writing down something, and that moment is when the person says, "I am seeking $50,000 for 10% of my company." And you say, "Okay, $50,000, 10%." So now everybody's doing the math to figure out what they are valuing their company at, and that's a little bit artificial. When somebody says, I'm trying to raise $500,000 for 10% of my company, that means you're valuing your company at $5 million, and that valuation at that point is really that's more art than it is a science, and that's probably not so good. I think the questions that the sharks ask is really good for what people who are interested in entrepreneurship should be looking at. What those sharks ask you about how you're going to do something with your business, I think that is what every budding entrepreneur needs to look at, because those are the kinds of questions that business people ask. Things that if you haven't figured those things out for your own business, those are the things you need to be working on. And so these are the things I point out to my students who are also interested in about Shark Tank. Thanks for that question.
Awesome. So there's another question also coming by way of John Brinkley. He says, right now, are there any incubators where a new entrepreneur can go for guidance and or assistance?
Oh, yeah, incubators. There are incubators, but it kind of depends upon what kind of business you have. Some businesses lend themselves to being in what people think about as an incubator. But after COVID-19, a lot of folks are not thinking about a physical place as that's an incubator where you go and you say, I'm going to put my business in this place with other businesses. A lot of those places have gone virtual, so there are virtual incubators. But let's just unpack it for a minute. The reason people like incubators is because, number one, there is a place that they can go to where usually the leasing rates for the location are much lower than what it would be at market rate. They like the fact that there's some mentoring going on, right? You got people who are involved in helping them and supporting them in their business. They like incubators because there are other business owners around them that they can talk to. They can share space for conference rooms and things like that. So are there incubators out there? Yes. There are, we still have one over at the New Jersey Institute of Technology in Newark. Lots of universities have incubator or incubator-like programs. But over at Rutgers, we don't have a physical space that we're using as an incubator, but we have programs like the Entrepreneurship Pioneers Initiative, and there are others where once or twice a month, the entrepreneurs all come to the same location, and what do they get? They get mentorship. They get interactions with other entrepreneurs, right? Often there's a growth planning that goes along with it, some presentations and pitching. In a couple cases, like this year, the program that we're running called Entrepreneurship Pioneers is being funded by Fiserv, Fiserv, the Fiserv company, and which in this area is based out of Berkeley Heights. They're the people who created the Clover point of service machines. And Fiserv is giving out business grants to some of those businesses. So that, those are the kinds of things people are usually looking for in incubators. So you got to look for different programs, and those programs, those initiatives often run through the universities, but there's also some with the African American Chamber or the Hispanic Chamber. There's some programs, initiatives out of something called the Tech United. It really depends on what kind of business you are looking for and what you're trying to do.
Well, I definitely thank you for that. You are sharing some information and some tools and resources that I can use. So I will certainly be exploring those. We do have another question coming by way of Erica Staley Williams. She's an individual who has started businesses locally as well. And she's inquiring now about how to learn about and sign up for your workshops or classes on the topic.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm at Rutgers University, and we have our Center for Urban Entrepreneurship and Economic Development. That's where we run a lot of our programs and initiatives out of there. That's out of Rutgers Business School. And there's a website for that. We can certainly put that in the chat so people can see it. It's business.rutgers.edu/CUEED. Then there's another set of programs out of the Small Business Development Center. New Jersey has a very active Small Business Development Center community. Every county has a hub of activity for small businesses. And Rutgers has two of them, but there's some at Bergen County Community College. Every county has an assigned center for small business development. So those also have a list of wonderful workshops and opportunities to connect with other entrepreneurs. So those are two good sources. And then again, I'll mention African American Chamber of Commerce. They have a number of programs, initiatives, and opportunities. Even I know every summer they have a golf tournament, which is a great opportunity to meet other especially Black business owners.
Awesome. Very informative. Thank you very much. I'm going to take another question as we round out the hour and prepare to close the broadcast for today. The question is coming from a Yoke Fellow, Frontiers Yoke Fellow Michael Pine, and he asked that you please explain the approach of starting a nonprofit versus a for-profit organization and how to best determine which to pursue.
Yeah, it's a good question. The small business, for the for-profit versus the nonprofit, I get that question a lot. The processes are virtually the same. I mean, every business that you want to set up, you got some paperwork to figure out, right? You got to register the business. So it's certainly a little bit easier to register a for-profit company because the paperwork is pretty straightforward, and you don't have to justify what your nonprofit is going to do. Nonprofits, you got some extra steps to take because not only do you need to register within your state as a nonprofit corporation, but you also, in order to do the tax exemption process, you need to file a form called the IRS. You have to fulfill requirements for the 501c3. And you say, what is all that? The IRS 10, I believe it's a 1023 form, is a form that's filled out if you want to create a nonprofit that allows you to do the tax exemption process so that you can offer people who donate to you some tax relief. And that's usually the main reason why people want to create a nonprofit. The other reason that people want to create a nonprofit is, we're not only going to accept donations, we also want to be eligible for certain kinds of grants. And some of the grants out there, the requirement is that you must be a nonprofit company, a nonprofit corporation. And if you know that most of your funding is going to come from grants where you're required to be a 501c3 or from donations from others, then creating a nonprofit is probably a good thing to do. If that's not the case for you, then the question is, why go through all the additional paperwork and justifications in order to set up a nonprofit when you could be a for-profit and do the same thing? So those are some of the questions. I think there's probably a third thing that is there, is that if you go through the nonprofit process and set up your nonprofit, there's also a transparency that is very key to being a nonprofit. You must every year file a form, IRS 990s. 990 is a public record of detailing how you spent the money for that year, who's on your board. You have to spell out who the people who are getting paid or employees as part of the organization, all of the purposes and all those kinds of things. So it's a trade-off. You're able to receive grants. You're able to provide tax relief to some folks who provide you donations, but in return, you have to be super transparent. So I'm always of the mind, you got to count the costs and see if being a nonprofit and going that route is the right one for you. Because certainly being a for-profit company is much easier.
Wonderful insights there. Thank you so much. And yes, you are absolutely right. Form 1023 for the IRS is the path to do that. But to your point, if your funding is not going to be primarily sourced from grants and or donations, then that might not be the right choice for you. And certainly it would create more restrictions than you may anticipate early on. So thinking strategically about which avenue to pursue is very important to do so very early in the process. And so thank you very much for that. I do want to give you a few moments, Dr. Robinson, to share any closing remarks as we round out the broadcast. And then immediately following that, I will address everyone and we will invite you all back to our next segment in our lecture series. And we will close out today's broadcast. So, Dr. Robinson.
Well, thank you very much. Again, I always like to encourage people. If you've got that entrepreneurial spirit, you said, I got a bug, I got to do this. I got this idea. You need to write it down. One of the things that I have seen over the years is that there's some of us who talk a whole lot. We talk a whole lot about, I'm going to do this in business. This is what I'm trying to do. And we talk about it a lot and we never write anything down. I say, why is that writing something down so important? Because when you get it out of your head and you write it down on some paper and you start to work that idea and show people something about the idea, now it's going to become a reality that can be worked on. And that is the key to getting going. Stop, talking about it and be about it. There are plenty of resources in the state of New Jersey and beyond to support entrepreneurs and small business. You can take advantage of them. Start at near one of the universities or at the universities with the small business development centers, and they'll start to connect you to some of the other resources. Talk to other entrepreneurs, right? They can help you as you get started, and take that leap so that you can create some of the jobs we need in our community. You can create some of the wealth we need in our communities and contribute to the vibrancy that is our community. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you all for paying attention and be participants in this conversation that we had today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robinson, for sharing your wealth of knowledge and information with us. We certainly do hope to hear again from you soon. The Frontiers International Plainfield Area Club would be glad to host another segment on a similar topic like this one so that we can continue to provide information and insights to empower members of our community to create opportunity and to seize the opportunities available to them. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we are Frontiers International Plainfield Area Club. I am your host and president, Safir Jenkins, and we stand for advancement through service. To ensure that you remain in the know about all that is to transpire from our organization, we do have another segment that will be coming up in our lecture series right on May the 11th, where we will be partnering with the People's Organization for Progress to bring you a discussion on Malcolm X, and our speaker will be Herb Boyd. That will be May 11th, and then on June 17th, we will have Al Pierce and Dr. Benjamin, who will present on natural health treatments. And then in September, we will host a panel discussion on the case for reparations. Ultimately, thereafter, we'll go into October and we'll host a discussion with Ulrich Brown, author and filmmaker, on his book, Groundbreakers, Black Movie Makers. If you have not yet done so, I invite you to join us in our efforts to provide advancement through service. You can do so by donating to our scholarship fund using Zelle, and you can do that using phone number, area code 732-470-4207. Otherwise, you may mail a check or money order made payable to Frontiers International Plainfield to P.O. Box 428, Plainfield, New Jersey, 07061. Plainfield Frontiers is a 501c3 organization, tax exempt, and the donations which are qualified made to the organization are tax deductible. Again, I thank you for your time on today, your attention, your partnership, and moreover, your support as we continue to advancement through service here at Frontiers International Plainfield Area Club. I am Safir Jenkins, and I bid you adieu. Have a great day.